Hello everyone, Brian Jennings here, the Millennial Dragon, the psychic scientist. There is now roughly 100 subscribers to this channel, and I consider that some sort of milestone, not much in terms of the world's perspective, but I'm very grateful to the support that I am being given, have been given, will continue to be given, because this thing is just, it's so ugly. I would never wish this on my enemies, right? And Quentin's, he's like laughing his ass off right now, going, ha 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 ha. That's what happens when you don't do what I want in the movies. That's what happens when you don't play the game that the movie people play, right? Because he's a sick, dangerous man, right? So, right? What I'll say, I'm about to read a section from this book, and then I'll get back with reading from my novel. What I'll say is that if anyone who's actually interested in like understanding, however meagerly, it's in no way exhaustive, it's in no way comprehensive, understanding what is occurring to me, I invite you to watch the video that is titled "A Plea to the Pope." Right? And it is in no way exhaustive, right? But it's as ugly as it gets, right? And the reason that I put that on there, right, despite knowing that on some level it's an invitation for someone to say, oh, I want Quentin to think I'm cool, right? And so that's the other side of this campaign, that someone could start doing the things that he does in an effort to gain his good graces, right? To gain William Morris Endeavor's good graces, right? And so that's right. And this is a sad reality, right? That this is like that's right. That they've opened themselves up by allowing this thing to ferment and fester as long as it has to really palpably sick people, to ill people, in an effort to say, I'm cool just like Quentin. See, look at what I'm prepared to do, right? So you watch that video and you'll see what it's about. And again, right, he stole it all from me, right? Because he's never understood the game. He doesn't know what's occurring, right? So we're getting to this point in the novel, right, where we're about to really get into it as far as like why, right? We're already in the 300s. Why he revealed to me that he doesn't have a daughter, right? So for months, it was, oh, I have this daughter, right? And then after I started remote viewing the girl, her name is Allison Tarantino, Instagram handle @AllieJean_3 or 4. I don't know, does she know him? Does she not know him? It doesn't matter either way. She's the first bitch who pops up. So I suspect he doesn't know who she is, right? But when I printed out her picture, right, and I made a sigil similar to this one, right, with Ari for her, and I went off after about 10 days of that, he said, again, it degenerated into ridiculously awful things that you would never allege your daughter does, right? And when I persisted, he eventually said, oh, I don't have a daughter, right? And so that was around the end of January, right? And so I started coming clean immediately. That's when I wrote Fish, right? That's when I wrote the Discovery Institute and said, this guy is evil. He wants me to die. That's all that's ever been occurring. I want you to show me everything that you received that involves me. Just what involves me, that's all, right? And they both said nothing. Both of those institutions said nothing. And silence is its own answer, isn't it? Silence tells me that they are in league with Quentin in some way, right? Because if it was just my letters and the truth was just that I'm mentally ill, right? Then the truth would be that I'm mentally ill and they would have no problem sending me the letters that involve me, right? And so that's my mother coughing, and I know that none of you mind. So, right, he rather than look at everything that's good around him, right, and say, oh, okay, this is my life, like I have it good, right, I have a beautiful wife, right, I have a beautiful life, right, he thinks that it's more appropriate to compel me to madness and suicide. I'm not clever enough to conjure 130,000 words, right? That's not, I'm not smart enough to do that. That's not, no. I'm not insane enough to do that. No one writes like that. Insane people don't write that. Insane people write all work and no play make Jack a dull boy, right? That's how that works, right? This is a concentrated, focused effort of autobiography transmuted into a novel, right? That's what this is, right? And so we're talking about it because it's just evil. You know, it's just evil, right? So after I revealed myself, right, and I started talking about it online the first time, right, and it's all in there in the fucking a plea to the Pope, right, when his evil degenerated into real sick black magic. I said, okay, no, we're good. You take, right? I'll take everything down. This is why we're still talking about this now. Right? Because I took everything down and said, no money required. Right? You don't have to pay me anything. You keep my scene, you keep everything. You just fuck off. You just leave me alone. Right? Easy. Right? And then, right, after about a week, he said, I want you to sue. Right? And so after that didn't move as fast as he would like, right? He started torturing me again while I was working. I took a job sorting trash. Right? I could have been a movie star, right? All the way up there at the highest level, right? Took a job sorting trash, right? Because I'm moving on with my life, right? And I don't want to work with that man anyway. He's an evil man, right? And so the last thing that I'll say, right? And after he did that, I said, okay, it's done. Like, it's done. We're talking about it every day because you're a sick, evil man and you're going to do degenerate things to me as much or as little as you want because you're a sad guy, because you don't see anything that's good in your life. You don't see that beautiful goddess that's your wife, right? You don't see those two beautiful children, right? You only see right behind me, Baphomet, right? You see your satanic occultism, right? As some sort of talisman of power, right? And it's a yoke enslaving you, nothing but, right? So that's why we're talking about it now. That's why I put everything back up, right? And that's why I've written the Pope. My letter will be arriving soon. But I'm going to read a short passage from this book that I'm reading. That to the mind of the Pythagoreans, the divine, unity, the one, or the first principle of all things, was a something diffused throughout the whole world, but that they held it to be in itself unknowable, only revealing itself in mundane things as that which reconciles all to friendship, causes them to harmonize, adapts them to each other, and thereby renders them knowable. It manifests itself as the source of all being and of all truth. And Cicero says, God, with the Pythagoreans, is the soul of which is diffused through and governing in all things, and from which our souls derive their origin. Right? So, in that one sentence, you have summed up my worldview, which is also the worldview of all ancient sage mystery traditions of all time. Right? Right? That there is a source which is unknowable. Right? And it must degrade itself. Right? Corrupt itself into multiplication and division. Out of one comes two, right? And out of two comes three, right? So, right? This is the greater mysteries, right? That all things emerge from a singular origin, which is diffused everywhere, always, right? And so this is what I've been saying in all of my videos, that all, right? That everything, that perfect expression of love, so divine it is incapable of manifesting itself, right? Corrupts itself through pressure, through contracting itself, contracting the hologram, which is its physical shadow, until it becomes so dense in electric resistance that it can no longer remain in inert space and erupts into incandescence as matter, right? This is what happens with all psychics, right? This is what is happening with all psychic phenomenon, clairvoyant phenomenon, right? That they're connecting their conscious awareness, right, with the divine conscious resonance, which exists everywhere perpetually in a state of rest. And we'll touch more on that. I'll pick up where I left off. While sitting at the airport, I got to talking with a Canadian guy with a long layover. I smoked some weed with him and we got to talking. I said little, no names, but enough for him to offer to buy me a drink. And we walked to a hotel near the airport. He was grateful I had marijuana. His voice was shot, which made it easier to write. He had been on a cruise and was flying to Guatemala for 5 days. Solo, no plans. He eventually got a room for a few hours and we parted ways. He was very encouraging and kind, assuring me I would reconcile with whomever, never knowing anything, beyond that I have a complicated relationship with very famous people, and that he could tell I have a good heart. I'm grateful. Thereafter, I walked back to the airport and spent all of my remaining money on booking a bus ticket to Memphis. It is all I can afford. Then walked another 3 miles to the closest business I could pay for the ticket at, on the other side of the airport off Sepulveda, heading towards Culver City. The ticket is for 5 days from now, November 8th. I have been sleeping in the most disgusting hovel imaginable, under a stairwell in one of the parking garages between the 2 terminal complexes. 1 through 3 on one side, 4 through 7 on the other. Dirt floor, bugs, trash. 2 milk crates suggest previous occupancy. Each night they all lend me strength, though it helps little when, having no means of warmth, I must adopt this absurd posture to shove my bunched legs underneath my jacket as well. I have awoke each morning in agony. My joints, I am wasting away. Tomorrow is my last full day here. All this time here has washed over me like some grand nightmare. Illustrious, awesome, the terror. We've become so close, yet I have never been more alone. Thinking on Lisa, Ophelia, my perplexity waxes. All of us together all day. It feels like a put-up job, the 2 of them agreeing to share me. Annabella admits to getting me another wife, that they showed Clay my poems, told him Willow was manipulating me, and asked him to help put distance between the 2 of us. Another daughter of someone I admire. I asked Clay what his thoughts are on this coven of witches his daughter seems keen to enter into with Willow. He says he doesn't want to get in the way. Hazel comes often as well. They're 3. My attitude towards Willow has never been worse or more myopic. Every night when I see her fucking other men, I want more than anything to make manifest the vision I gave them days ago. To blow my head off and to be free. We will all be free once I'm gone. And every day when they all beg both of us to reconcile because we are in love, the tedium of it all and my confusion hit their apex. Today is no exception. These last few days have seen a new routine emerge. After rising from my restless, disheveled sleep, compelling compound arthritis with each agitated, rapid eye or body movement, I have taken to walking 6 miles into Culver City, where I'll eat at Jack in the Box because they take food stamps. Then backtrack 1 mile towards the airport to the nearest park called Triangle, an iconic and fitting name to a park I spend my idle hours in. Perusing this side of town mile after mile, our communion continues. Inquiring as to my prowess, I explained my sobriety sparked an interest in geometry and the mind, that I concerned myself with meditation, visualization, the imagination. I close my eyes, and the abstract scaffolding supporting and conserving the world is revealed. Therein is the transcendent, that man's mind is God's mind, and God's mind is the universe. That by seeing the psychic mental origin of things, you walk hand in hand with divinity, now benign, always benevolent. To understand law is to liberate the soul. The jealous, vengeful God of the New Testament is a character trait of the ignorant human that wrote it. God has no emotion, but bestows all through the spectral division of psychological and manifested truth. It is not a creature. It is an abstract intellectual necessity, in the world but not of it. within all things centering them, and without all things controlling them. I'll stop there. So, it's a novelization of my experiences with Quentin Tarantino on the psychic frontier. There is no daughter, right? All of these things that he's done. Eliza Anastasio, she's not involved either, right? That it's all bullshit in an effort to make me believe that death is better, right? That it's a sick joke, that everything is a sick, fucked up game with them, right? And it wasn't until that I turned it all on them, right? Celestial Vision Board, right? Millennial Dragon, that they finally revealed, oh no, this isn't, no, it's not real, none of it's, no one loves you, ha 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 ha, right? And so, right, now that he's failed to corrupt my mind, right, now that he's failed to trick me into blowing my head off, right, he's stolen my wisdom because this is his game, right, and he's descended into palpable black magic evil, right, to try to destroy my body with his mind, him and the cabal of degenerates that surround him, right? Is it all him, right? I don't know. I know that William Morris and Endeavor support his degeneracy. How can I make that claim, right? I wrote those letters, those 10 sonnets in that long-form love poem to a woman who doesn't exist last August, right? That's 12 months, perhaps July even, right? No, it was August, right? That's a whole fucking year that Mike Simpson and his assistant, right, and everyone that works at that desk, because I hand-delivered it, have all been aware, right, that Quentin has been leading me to believe, right, that there's a woman who loves me who doesn't actually exist, right? This is why I'm suing them, right? That they're culpable, right? That they could have said, no, this is, right, we're drawing a line here. That there is such a thing as ethics, as morality, right? And you're actively seeking the destruction of an innocent man's mind because he didn't give you what you wanted, right? And that's sick and perverse and base. But instead of doing that, instead of having ethics, they said, okay, Quentin, you're handling it, right? And so, right, they're all in league with evil. All these people are in league with evil. And he tells all of them that I'm insane, right? His only argument is that I'm insane, right? And to which, again, right, I'll say it again, I'm not clever enough, right, to come up. This is a story that would never emerge, right, out of any sort of mental rhapsody in my mind. No. I don't know whose idea this was, right? If it was his wife's idea, as far as involving the heart, trying to, was it just to humiliate me? Because if that was true, right, and he has to pay me, right, for my scene, then why wouldn't he just pay me after I compelled him to admit that he has no daughter, right? When I went off, I went the fuck off. Right? Can't stress that enough, right? And I did nothing, right? I did nothing. And if I put this evil on him that he puts on me, right, he'll send people to murder me, right? He's a bully, right? He's a sick, evil man, right, who doesn't see anything good in his life. He only sees that he has to control the mind of every actor in the world. That's all he sees, right? And he'll never possess my mind, right? He could have gotten what he wanted, right? All he had to do was look me in the eye. He didn't even have to say anything, right? He just had to look at me like I was looking at him, and I would have broke like that, right? He wanted to stick his nose up at me, right? He wanted to turn his back on me, and so I said, okay, right? I can do that too. I'm following your direction. You're directing me. Right? Telepathy's bullshit, right? These games that he plays are sick. It's not cool, right? And I let him play his games for months, right? Not for a week, right? Not for 2 days, right? It's just like I said in the other video, 8 words he sent me as an email. And then when he turned his back on me, I would have said, oh, it's just theater. Yeah, it was supposed to be enough. Like, yeah, sure, like everything he said was in relation to me, right? But in that way, right? Right? I'm not a fucking show pony, right? I'm not a monkey in a cage, right? You got money, you're famous. Oh, does that mean you're better than me? And you get to compel me to bark like a dog? No thanks. Right? And so again, I hated myself for months, right? Because I wanted to give him what he wanted. Right? But in that moment, I said, oh, okay, he turns his back. That's like, okay, I guess we're done. Right? And again, read between the lines, bullshit, like sure, initiation, blah, 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 blah. Right? Anyone who thinks I need to be initiated by anyone other than God, right, hasn't been paying attention. And that's Quentin's point now. Oh, that he's a sad, weird, lonely guy. And when he dies, when I compel him to madness, right, I won't have any more problems and the world will be no worse off for it. Right? Right? And so the real tragedy in all of this, right, is that everyone around him just allow him to continue this thing. Martin Scorsese, right, director of The Last Temptation of Christ, right, he knows, right? Paul Schrader, writer, director of First Reformed, right, the finest film about the mystery of God in the 21st century, right? He knows, right? Transstasia from Fish, right? Salman Rushdie, right? David Berlinski, right? The author of The Devil's Delusion, right? Stephen Meyer, the Discovery Institute, propagators of intelligent design, right? My point when I say all these things, right, and that's not everyone that I've written, right, is that if the people around him, right, were holding him accountable, then he would have paid me already, and he wouldn't be torturing me as much or as little as he wants, right? You think that he would be torturing me if William Morris Endeavor said, we're going to drop you if he keeps making videos? Right? Of course not. Right? So, I guess I'm going to stop. I don't really know what else to do. Maybe I'll recite some Hamlet. This? Let me see. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now, how abhorred in my imagination it is, my gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips, which I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now? Your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar. Not one now to mock your own grinning. Quite. Shop found. Now get you to my lady's chamber, and tell her, let her paint an inch thick, to this favor she must come. Make her laugh at that. Prithee, Horatio, tell me one thing. Dost thou think that Alexander looked this fashion the earth? Smelt so, pah. To what base uses we may return, Horatio. Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole? No, faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough in likelihood to lead it, as thus. Alexander died, Alexander was buried, Alexander returned to dust. The dust is earth, of earth we make a loam, and why, whereto of that loam where he was converted, might they not stop a beer barrel? Imperial Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that earth, which kept the world in awe, should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw.